This show is produced by the Harwood Podcast Network.
Hi, I'm Cindy Harris, and we love making this show available to you free of charge. If you'd like to help us keep it that way, make a contribution to our Karma Jar or become a show sponsor. To learn more, visit our website. Today I'm making black bottom cheesecake cupcakes. What I've done is I've made this great chocolate layer and then a wonderfully rich rum cheesecake layer and then topped it with whipped cream and chocolate shavings. I'm going to start by getting my muffin pan ready, and I have a 12-cup muffin pan, and I'm going to be putting a paper liner in each one of the wells. Now I'm going to set this to the side, and I'm going to start by getting my crust ready. Now this cupcake has a chocolate cookie bottom, and so for that we're going to be using some Oreos, and Oreos are a cookie that we have here in the United States. They're a chocolate sandwich cookie, and I'm going to be using those for the crust. Now I'm going to be grinding those up in my little food processor. If you don't have a food processor, you could just put these in a large Ziploc bag, and you could crush them with a rolling pin until they get nice and fine. I'm going to start by putting 10 Oreos in my food processor, and I'm going to pulse these until they're nice and fine. And once they're finely ground up, you'll see you don't even see the sandwich part of the cookie, so that's nice. I'm going to measure out 3/4 cup of crumbs. So those 10 cookies look to be just about right. Now before we move on, take a moment and just make sure that the cookie crumbs are all nice and fine. If you find some that are still kind of big, just squish them between your fingers. It's kind of important that the crumbs be nice and fine at this point. Now in a small dish, I've melted 3 tablespoons of butter. I'm going to pour that into the crumbs, and just with a spoon, I'm going to toss that together. I want to make sure that the cookie crumbs get moistened by that butter. And you'll see it starts to look kind of like wet sand. Now I'm going to divide the crumbs up into each of the cupcake wells. So I'm just going to take like a heaping tablespoon and put it in the bottom of each one of the wells. And then with the leftovers, I'm just going to divide that up. You just want to make sure that each cupcake has about the same amount of crumbs at the bottom. Now to press those crumbs into the bottom of the wells, I'm going to take my 1/4 cup measuring cup, or you could use anything, even a glass that's about the same diameter, and I'm just going to press that down, and it's going to compress those crumbs into the bottom. Now if you find any of them stick on the bottom, just take your finger and push them right off. And then I like to just go back with my finger and make sure that the crumbs are completely covering the bottom of the liner. Sometimes when you're pressing them down, they can kind of scooch off to the side, but we want to make sure that they are covering the bottom. Since these are black bottom cupcakes, we want to make sure that they have a complete black cookie crumb bottom. So that looks really good. I'm going to set this to the side just for a second because I want to add just a little bit more chocolate to the bottom of these cupcakes. So in a little glass dish or some kind of microwave proof dish, I'm going to measure out 1 cup of semi-sweet chocolate chips. Now I'm going to pop these in the microwave on 30-second bursts. I want to make sure to stir after each 30 seconds because I want to heat this just until the chocolate starts to melt. So I'm going to grab my muffin pan again, and I'm going to divide this chocolate up into the 12 wells. So I'm just going to take a little spoonful here, and I'm just going to drizzle that right on top. So we have this kind of double chocolate layer. We've got the chocolate cookies, but then we have some semi-sweet chocolate. And then I take my spatula here and I just kind of dab it just to make sure that that chocolate is coating the bottom entirely. Now before we set the pan aside and get the cheesecake part made, you'll notice I have some little drips of chocolate. I don't want those to stay on there because when I put this in the oven that will potentially burn and I don't want that. So I'm just going to take a paper towel and kind of dab that off. Then I'll set this to the side and we'll get our cheesecake filling ready. Because we're going to be using cream cheese, it's important for this that we use a mixer. So either a standing mixer or a hand mixer will work. And I have 8 ounces of cream cheese. Now I'm not using a light cream cheese. I'm using the full fat. You kind of have to with this cheesecake. And I'm going to open it up. And I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to cut it in half lengthwise, like I do my butter, and then into some little cubes like this. And then I'll pop that into the mixer bowl. And to the cream cheese, I'm going to add a half a cup of sugar. And I'm going to let this mix until it's light and fluffy for about 2 minutes. I'm going to stop the mixer. Take my spatula. I want to scrape down the sides of the bowl to make sure that the cream cheese is getting mixed in nicely. And then I'm going to turn the mixer on a low speed, and I have 2 eggs, and I'm going to drop them in one at a time. And once the second egg is in, then I can kind of push the speed up just a little bit, about to medium, until the egg is nicely mixed in with the cream cheese. Now after a minute or so, I'm going to turn the mixer off, and again I'm going to scrape down because you'll see that some of the cream cheese has kind of flung to the sides of the mixer bowl, and we really want the egg and the cream cheese to mix together. And then I'm just going to let that spin for about another few seconds. Next, I'm measuring out a half a cup of heavy whipping cream, and I'm going to put that into the bowl, along with 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of vanilla, and a tablespoon of dark rum. Now, if you don't have any dark rum handy, you can also use a teaspoon of rum extract. And I'll mix this on a slow speed. I'm not really looking to get a lot of volume in this at this point. I just want to make sure that everything gets mixed in really well, and to ensure that, I'll keep scraping it down until I only see nice, smooth cream cheese mixture in here. And once that's done, I'll just make sure and do a final mix down. And I want to make sure that this mixture is really smooth. I'm going to get my muffin pan back out. I'm just going to use my 1/4 cup measuring cup to help fill these. Now, I only want to fill the cups about 3/4 full. Now, don't use the 1/4 cup measuring cup to measure the cheesecake mixture into the cups. It's just to help us get it in there without it dripping all over the pan. Now, once the wells are full, again, look and see if you have any little drips. Make sure to pick those up with a paper towel. Now I've preheated the oven to 300 degrees. That's a little lower temperature than we would normally cook cupcakes on, but because this is a cheesecake, we want to cook it nice and slowly. It's going to take about 30 minutes. Now while the cupcakes are baking, I just wanted to take a moment and tell you about our brand new badge program that we've launched here at the network. Now what we've done is designed all kinds of badges that you can earn by doing some of the things that you learn when you're watching our podcasts. So for example, if you make these black bottom cheesecake cupcakes, you can earn the Cupcake badge. Whether you're into baking cookies or breads or scones, it's a really fun thing to do, and it's totally free. And all you have to do is go to our website and you can sign up there. Now when the cupcakes come out of the oven, you're going to see when you jiggle the pan, they're nice and set, but these have to sit on a cooling rack for 1 hour. Now while the cupcakes are cooling on the rack, I'm going to make the whipped cream that I'm going to pipe on the top of them. So in my mixer bowl, I've got a fresh bowl, and I'm using my whisk attachment. If you were using a hand mixer, that would be fine. And I have 1 cup of heavy cream. And to that, I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of sugar and 1 teaspoon of vanilla. I'm going to start this on a medium speed. And then after a minute or so, I'm going to bump it up to a high speed. And the cream is going to start getting nice and thick, and you're going to start seeing some tracks from the whisk. And then you'll see it starts to get nice and thick, like this. Now, because I'm going to be piping this cream, I want it to be pretty thick, but you do have to be careful that it doesn't turn to butter. So once it gets like that, I'm just going to put it on a medium speed for another few seconds. And then you can see this is really nice and thick. This will be a good consistency to pipe with. Then I'm going to take and spoon this out into a bowl because I'm going to need to cover this and keep it in the refrigerator. Now, after an hour, the cupcakes have cooled totally to room temperature, but we need them to get cold because it is a cheesecake. So I'm going to take a piece of plastic wrap. I'm going to leave them in the muffin well. So I'm just going to cover this up and put this in the refrigerator for about 2 hours. Once they're really cold, then we can go ahead and pipe the whipped cream on top. Now, I like to put some chocolate shavings on top of the whipped cream. So I have a bar of semi-sweet chocolate, and then I'm going to place a piece of parchment down, and I'm going to take a non-serrated knife, and I'm going to take the chocolate, I'm going to lay it flat on the smooth side, and I'm just going to scrape in little motions the knife up the chocolate. And it's going to make these nice little curls. Now, if you wanted to, you could also use a vegetable peeler and just peel down the side. This is going to make a finer shaving, not quite as much like a curl. But if you have kids helping you, this would be a lot safer. Now, once I have as many shavings as I like, I'm going to take and I'm going to slide them into a bowl. Now, I've taken the cupcakes out of the refrigerator. They're nice and cold. I'm going to use a little offset spatula and pop one of these out, just like this. Now, you're going to want to put the whipped cream and chocolate shavings on right before you serve them. So this is how we do it. I'm going to start by peeling off the paper liner around the cupcake. And then I'm going to take my little offset spatula. I'm going to slide it underneath. And place it on a plate, and you can see we have the black bottom, which is perfect. Now, I want to pipe the whipped cream on top using a pastry bag and a tip. If you wanted to, you could just spoon it on and that would look beautiful too. But let me show you how I'm going to pipe it. I have a disposable piping bag and a really large star tip. And I'm going to take my scissors, I'm going to cut the end off the bag and open it up and place the tip down into the center of the bag, and it should just barely peek out. Now I'm going to fold this back almost like a cuff of a boot, and I'll take my whipped cream right in the center and then lift the bag back up, and then I'm ready to pipe. And I'm going to tilt the bag up, and I'm going to make a big circle and then an inner circle and then up on the top. And then with a small spoon, I'll take some of the chocolate shavings and just sprinkle that right on top. Now, you're going to want to pipe the whipped cream and put the chocolate shavings on at the last minute right before you serve these little cupcakes. If you did want to make them ahead of time though, you could go ahead and leave them in the wrapper, but just wrap this in plastic wrap and put them in a zip bag in the freezer. Then all you have to do is take them out, take the paper off, and put the whipped cream and chocolate shavings on, and they're ready to go. And here we have our perfect little black bottom cheesecake cupcake. Now, if you'd like to try this recipe at home, just go to our website and go to the Cupcake show notes, and I'll have it there for you. And if you have any questions or any ideas for me, please send me an email. I'll see you next time.